Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. A couple of young Australian trade workers are being praised for their quick thinking and bravery this week after they foiled a brazen daylight robbery at a suburban home that was allegedly being carried out by a trio of armed teenagers. According to reports, the whole thing started sometime around 11 a.m. on September 12th when the tradesmen, identified only as Connor and Jacob, were at a job site in the Brisbane suburb of Int'l. The pair were hard at work when suddenly they heard what sounded like some sort of alarm going off a short distance away. The alarm turned out to be from the home security system of a residence a few doors down, where at that very moment a robbery was taking place. When Connor and Jacob went to investigate, they quickly came face to face with the three teenage suspects allegedly behind the crime. The trio had reportedly kicked in doors at the home and had also backed a Porsche into the driveway, which they had apparently planned to use as a getaway vehicle. After piecing together what was happening, Connor reached into the Porsche and pulled out the keys, preventing the suspects from taking off. In the meantime, Jacob began calling the police, warning nearby residents that had been drawn outside by the loud commotion that the robbers were armed with knives. Upon realizing that they were stuck, two of the suspects immediately took off running. The third, who was wearing a balaclava over his face, briefly tried to threaten Connor with his knife. However, when it became clear that he wasn't going to turn over the car keys, he also ran for it. All three suspects were later arrested by police. In the aftermath of the incident, Connor and Jacob's boss, Travis Kesson, told the media that he couldn't have been prouder of the way the two handled themselves, saying, quote, "They were able to avoid anyone getting hurt and help people with their property, get the property back, and stop them from robbing the house." According to police, the three suspects have each now been charged with multiple offenses, including attempted break-in of a dwelling and attempted armed robbery. Two of the suspects have been charged with possessing a knife, while one has been charged with possessing a dangerous drug. Due to the suspects' ages, their names have not been released. Authorities in the English county of Somerset say that a 41-year-old man has pleaded guilty to a slew of charges this week, days after he allegedly went on an unhinged and dangerous vehicle rampage following a domestic dispute. According to reports, the situation began late in the afternoon on September 10th when 41-year-old Jeffrey Marshall and his partner Catherine Lamb got into a heated argument over text messages she found on his phone. The content of these messages is unclear, but what we do know is that the situation only got worse from here. So much so that Catherine fled the house, which she apparently owns, calling police and saying that she feared for her safety. Prior to this, Marshall had allegedly attacked her and smashed her phone in a fit of rage. By the time Avon and Somerset police arrived at the property in the village of Norton, Fitzwarren, however, things had escalated even further. Marshall was now behind the wheel of a 1958 M35 U.S. military truck. Though officers tried to negotiate with Marshall, these attempts apparently fell on deaf ears. It was at this point that the 41-year-old began to go on a rampage. According to police, Marshall rammed the 2.5 metric ton truck into Lamb's home, causing serious structural damage to the property. He then proceeded to destroy her Range Rover before driving through a police barricade and fleeing the scene. On his way, he damaged 4 police cars and several other vehicles on the street. Authorities pursued Marshall until he drove onto a bridge that crosses the M5 motorway, at which point he got out of the truck and threatened to jump. It was only after further negotiations that he finally surrendered. Following his arrest, Marshall appeared in court this week where he pleaded guilty to 12 charges of criminal damage in connection with the strange and destructive incident. He also admitted to further charges of dangerous driving and assault by beating. The 41-year-old is due back for sentencing in mid-October, where prosecutors say he will face a minimum of 18 months in prison. Authorities in the Chinese province of Hubei say that a live streamer has had his account banned and has been slapped with a misdemeanor punishment this week after he was found to be using drones to harass and invade the privacy of women for the amusement of his social media followers. The live streamer in question, identified only by the last name Wang, was reportedly arrested sometime earlier this month after his online activities were brought to the attention of police. According to reports, Wang was using multiple drones that he owned to follow random women home in Chongyang County while streaming the footage to his social media account. During the streams, he apparently made derogatory comments about the women and spread rumors about them which he had invented. While following the women, Wang also made no attempt to hide their home addresses, exposing where they lived. The streams apparently attracted a large following, much to the concern of police and other horrified internet users who called for something to be done. After the story attracted viral attention in China, Wang was arrested and given a punishment of 10-day administrative detention for, quote, disturbing social order through provocative actions. His social media account was also banned. Authorities in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh say that they are investigating a chilling murder this week after a high-profile lawyer was found dead in her home and her husband was accused of killing her as part of a twisted plot to sell their house and flee the country. According to reports, the case began sometime on September 11th when police in the city of Noida were contacted by the brother of 61-year-old Supreme Court lawyer Renu Sinha. The man said that he was worried about his sister as he hadn't been able to reach her for 2 days and she was recovering from a lengthy battle with cancer. Disturbingly, the brother also offered one final detail. He said he feared that Renu's husband, 62-year-old Nitin Sinha, was responsible for his sister's sudden disappearance. When police arrived at the couple's home, they found the place locked. After gaining access to the residence, they discovered that no one appeared to be home, but that the air conditioning was turned up quite high. It wasn't long before they realized why. In an upstairs bathroom, they found Renu's lifeless body on the floor. She had injuries to her head and face, though an autopsy would reveal that she had died from asphyxiation. While at first it appeared that Nitin Sinha was nowhere to be found, that changed a little while later when police looked up cell phone data that suggested the 62-year-old had never left the house. A thorough search revealed that Nitin had been hiding in a storage room that hadn't been immediately noticed by police. The situation only got darker once Nitin was arrested and brought in for questioning. It was there that he allegedly admitted to killing his wife during the middle of an argument over the sale of their home. According to investigators, Nitin had been wanting to sell he and Renu's home for some time, but she didn't want to. It had been a constant source of tension between the two, though recently Nitin had apparently decided to go behind his wife's back and sell the property anyway. He negotiated a price of 57 million rupees, or about $686,000 US, and had even taken a deposit equating to about 66 grand. On the morning of September 10th, Nitin explained that he and Renu were drinking tea together when they got into another argument about the house. It's not specifically stated whether Renu had figured out what was going on, but what we do know is that things turned physical. At some point, Nitin claimed his wife fell to the floor and badly hit her head. That's when he allegedly strangled her to death. After killing his wife, Nitin apparently stashed her body in the upstairs bedroom where it had been found, then turned up the AC to slow down any decomposition. Chillingly, just a couple of hours later, he allegedly called and met with the person he had arranged to buy the house, giving them a tour of the property's ground floor. Police say that Nitin was trying to conceal his wife's murder until he had made the money from the home sale, which he planned to use to flee to the UK. At the time of this recording, the 62-year-old remains in custody and is expected to face murder charges. Heartbreakingly, it's said that Renu had been declared cancer-free just a month before her murder and was looking forward to going back to her respected legal practice. Authorities in Thailand's Buri district say that a man was left severely injured and is facing charges this week, following a bizarre and dangerous apparent road rage incident that played out in front of dozens of confused and terrified witnesses. According to reports, the whole thing unfolded sometime on the morning of September 8th, when the suspect, identified only as a foreign national in his 40s, crashed his white Subaru hatchback into a roadside business on Prayasacha Road. The collision was fairly low speed and seemed to come out of nowhere, prompting a couple of bystanders to start filming. Things only got weirder when the man, who wasn't wearing a shirt or shoes, got out of the vehicle and began to behave strangely. He was seen pacing around and ducking down at the side of the roadway before starting to flag down other drivers. It's unclear what the man said to those who stopped, but it appears that none of these conversations lasted very long. Before long, the man's behavior became even more erratic, escalating when he tried to roundhouse kick a motorcyclist who refused to speak with him. Unfortunately, before police could be called to the scene, the unknown man got back into his vehicle and started driving again, this time into oncoming traffic. It's unclear how far he made it, but he allegedly struck several vehicles before trying to flee once again and getting into a much more serious accident that ended with his own car being overturned. The crash reportedly left multiple people with injuries, though it appears the most serious ones were sustained by the unknown man himself. Emergency responders were forced to use high-powered tools to cut into the Subaru in order to free him from the wreckage. At the time of this recording, authorities say that the man is recovering at a local hospital, though no updates appear to have been provided about his condition. He is now facing at least one reckless driving charge, though it's expected that more charges will follow. Police also say they are awaiting the results of a blood test to determine if the man was under the influence of alcohol or drugs during the incident. Representatives from the National Police of Peru say that a trio of hasty thieves got a whole lot less than they bargained for this week after they broke into a telecom store in the middle of the night in search of high-end smartphones and instead ended up with an armload of worthless garbage. According to reports, the whole thing took place recently when the suspects broke into an Int'l store in Lima's San Juan de Miraflores district. Under the cover of darkness, the group walked up to the business, wedged open their metal security shutters, and then made their way inside, wasting no time before heading towards the shop's display cases. After shattering and ripping open the cases with their hands, the thieves began grabbing as many high-end smartphones as they could carry, running off moments later. The whole thing was over in less than 3 minutes. Unfortunately for the thieves, though they may have executed their heist with the confidence and focus of seasoned professionals, they ended up making one of the worst rookie moves possible. You see, none of the items they stole were expensive phones. In fact, they weren't phones at all. The devices in the display cases were actually just replicas of the store's products designed to show customers what they looked like. They were made out of cardboard and styrofoam. All the real phones were in the store's back room, which the criminals apparently missed due to their rush to get in and out. At the time of this recording, police say that they are still searching for the hapless thieves and are asking for any members of the public who might have information about their identities to please come forward. Representatives from the London Metropolitan Police say that a more than 3-day manhunt has officially come to an end this week after a former soldier turned terror suspect managed to escape from custody at a local prison facility. According to reports, 21-year-old Daniel Abed Khalif had been held at HMP Wandsworth since January of this year when he was accused of multiple terror-related offenses. Specifically, it's alleged that Khalif carried out a bomb hoax at a Royal Air Force base in the town of Stafford, placing 3 canisters with wires on the property with the intention of making others believe they were real explosive devices. Officials also accused the 21-year-old of 2 other offenses related to gathering information for the purposes of passing it along to a foreign power. It's believed that Khalif was able to carry out these last two crimes by abusing access he was given as part of his training as a computer network engineer with the British Army's Royal Corps of Signals. Authorities now say that Khalif was able to escape from HMP Wandsworth on the morning of September 6th by hiding on the bottom of a prison food delivery vehicle. It's alleged that sometime before 7:30 a.m., he was able to leave the kitchen in his cook's uniform before securing himself to the underside of the vehicle with straps fashioned out of bedsheets. Khalif's absence wasn't noticed until roughly 20 minutes later, by which time the truck had left the prison grounds. News of the 21-year-old's disappearance understandably sparked a massive manhunt, one which lasted for roughly 75 hours. It finally came to an end on September 9th when Khalif was tackled by a plainclothes counter-terrorism officer while riding a bicycle. At the time, he was in Chiswick, West London, about a 45-minute drive from the facility where he had escaped. Police say he was in possession of several supplies, including a sleeping bag, a cell phone, cash, and a grocery bag containing food and drinks. While Khalif now remains in custody and is facing additional charges for his escape, in the meantime, many have called into question the security protocols at HMP Wandsworth. Still others are inquiring as to why Khalif was held at the facility in the first place given the nature of the accusations against him, since Wandsworth is a Category B prison offering only the second highest level of security. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. Representatives from the Zimbabwe Republic Police released details in connection with a truly chilling investigation this week, announcing that they had charged an alleged serial killer and suspected cannibal who they believe murdered at least 5 people. According to reports, 20-year-old Int'l Ndlovu was arrested back on September 4th at the end of what police now say was more than a week-long killing spree. Over the course of 8 days, authorities alleged that Ndlovu attacked nearly a dozen people, at least 5 of whom died of their injuries. Each of these murders reportedly followed the same chilling pattern. Ndlovu would approach homeless people who were asleep on the streets in the capital of Harare and drop a large concrete block on their head. The situation apparently gets a whole lot darker, though. After several of these murders, investigators say that the 20-year-old killer cooked and cannibalized his victims' remains. Ndlovu reportedly admitted this to detectives following his arrest, though has since recanted the confession, alleging that he only gave it while being beaten by police during questioning. Still others have suggested that perhaps Ndlovu did steal portions of his victims' bodies, but with the intention of selling them to others who plan to use them for ritualistic purposes. At the time of this recording, many of these details have yet to be confirmed, though Ndlovu remains in custody. Authorities say that they are also looking into claims that the 20-year-old may be responsible for 3 other murders that happened in his home city of Bulawayo back in 2020. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.